Hi, this is Majula Philokishore and today we'll be learning about Flask. Flask is really a really cool Python library which is going to allow us to create web services. And REST API is also a type of web service. It's a web service that matches a specific structure. Like Flask does not enforce REST API structure, but it allows us to create REST APIs. So what is an API? An API is a program that takes in some data and gives back some other data, usually after processing it. We will be building such programs so that our users then can send us some data, we can process it, and then we can send something else. For example, say Twitter search. You all might have used Twitter, right? So what happens in Twitter search? The search bar accepts data, that is search parameters, processes it and finds the tweets that match those parameters and sends those data back, preferably the tweet themselves. If you are a user of the Twitter search API, you can send them the search parameters and you can retrieve the tweets. So here is a Flask documentation website. As I said, Flask is a micro web framework in Python, and it is classified as micro framework because it does not require particular tools or libraries, and it also has no database of its own. And you can find the Flask documentation in this official website. And as I said, API stands for Application Programmer Interface, which is a software intermediary that allows two applications talk to each other. And now we'll see how to install Flask in our machine. So now we are going to be installing Flask. So Flask is a library that works with our Python installation, and that is what we are going to let us create our REST APIs. So we use Flask, we use Python because it's great for installing libraries and it works with the library management system, central library management system, as long as the library has been enabled. And we use pip or either pip3. Pip is the older version and pip3 is the latest version, and the Python versions are either 2.7 or the latest one, Python 3. I recommend we use Python 3 for our course. So this central system is accessed via a command called pip, and pip 3.5 is the latest version, and the command that we'll be using is pip 3.5 install Flask. So pip is used because it is relatively easy to install libraries in Python, and pip 3.5 is the latest version. And there are other ways of installing libraries too, but fortunately Flask works with pip, so it's really easy. And now we'll see the Python version we have. It is 3.8.9, so that is the latest version according August 2021 it is updated, and we'll exit from the shell. So now we'll use the pip command to install our Flask library. So it's not yet installed, so what we'll be doing is install the pip command first. So now we'll install the pip command. So we have this instructions from Geeks for Geeks site, and we copy the command with curl, so it's installed. Now we get to run with the Python 3 command, and once we run, we get the latest version of pip installed, that is 21.2.4, and with all the dependencies included. So we can say the status here. Now we'll clear the screen and then proceed to installing Flask. So it's just one single step to install Flask. So that's it. We get Flask installed with all those dependencies. Now we have installed our pip command as well as the Flask one. Now we get to see the definition of pip3 and the general options with us, also the commands. We have this list command. Now we'll use it to see if our Flask is present in our pip3. So we get to see the pip3 list and we get the Flask version with 2.0.1. Now we'll clear the screen and try to have our first Flask application. So Flask applications are built around requests and responses. So we'll look that in detail at what requests and responses are and how the web works in a few minutes. So I'll give you a quick introduction. Like, a request is what your browser does. So for example, Safari or Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, take any web browser. Whenever you go to a website, you are making a request and there is a computer somewhere on the internet that is receiving that request, and that computer has something like a Flask application in it, so that the Flask application receives that request from your browser and then decides what to do with it, and then it returns back the response. So for example, one request may be to ask for a certain page home page. Another request may be to ask for something called hello.html for an HTML file. So we'll save this file as app.py and we'll be writing our code in Python and we'll comment this first line. So we get to import the Flask from Flask, like library needed to run the Flask application from the Flask command. So as I was saying, another request may be to ask for user number 3, for example. So a request can be really anything to retrieve any data. And now we get to write our code. So Flask is really a server-side application and it has to be created to be able to understand those requests. So we'll write Flask. We call the Flask method with the app variable and there has to be name for the Flask. That's the key element in here. And the import statement tells Python that we have to use Flask, and every Flask application must have a unique name. Like say for example, every student in the class has a unique name. Like that, we must have name for the Flask application. So we create an app from that of the Flask class. So we might say that app equals Flask, and here comes something newer. So we'll be using a special Python variable so that when we start the Flask application, it gets routed to the home page. So like it's running in a specific location, and you don't worry about too much about it. You'll understand what the endpoint is when we run the application. So for example, when we write say https for google.com, it redirects us to the Google's homepage. So in a short while you'll understand what a request is, and we may also navigate to the hyperlinks present in the Google, like Google Maps. Each request lands us in a different page, and the endpoint for that request must be placed correctly, and you'll understand that once we run the program. So this endpoint will land us in the Google's front page, and that would be a separate route for other links as well. So we'll define our home function. It can be of any name. The only thing that's important is the route one, and it's more than a decorator for application. So it has to return the response back to the browser, so that our browser receives something back, so that it can show something on a website. So I'll write the standard hello world response with the return statement. So what happens now is that when we access our browser endpoint, what we should see is hello world coming back. Then of course we need to tell the app to run, that is to start running. So we have app.run. So when we have to specify the port in which the application must run. Say for example I give port 5000. A port is just a sort of area of the computer where your app is going to be receiving requests and returning your responses through. So computers have many of these areas, and in this case I'll use port 5000. Say if it has already in use, that's because some other application has used that particular port. You can change it to another port if you want. So that's really easy. So we have mentioned our app.run with the port number 5000. You may also use 4999 for example. So we locate our file. We're gonna run it with Python 3.5. So we made a mistake here. Yeah, I think we haven't routed it back to the home page. As I said, the slash symbol is really important to get back to our home page. Now it starts running. So this is our URL that we'll be pasting in our browser shortly to get the output. I'll go open Google Chrome, then I paste the URL, and it displays hello world as we had written from the home page. Tada! This is the response that we expected. So our program has run successfully. So 127.0.0.1, what is it? That is a special unique IP address that is reserved for the computer specifically. So whenever you access this address in your browser, you're accessing is your own computer. Because we use HTTP, we could able to access this page. 200 is the standard OK response score. So that's it. You've learned and run how a Flask application, simple Flask application runs on Google Chrome. Then you can try it for yourself and return some other data. And you can use any editor of your choice. You can use Atom or anything. I've used Sublime Text and Terminal for my comfort. So we can return anything like integer or anything. It doesn't have to return strings only. That would be quite boring. So but normally in REST APIs they do return strings, and it is a JavaScript application that deals with displaying things nicely. So Flask can also display things nicely if you want, but that's not the purpose of this video. So we'll be seeing more videos upcoming regarding the Flask, and we'll learn more about it. So this is how we deal with creating websites and web apps with Flask. And REST APIs usually return text in a specific format, so we're going to be looking more at that in the upcoming videos. And hope you got some insight about how to use the REST API from within a JavaScript application. Like we'll see about it in the upcoming videos. and hope this was useful to you.